You were saying in stories
Yes.
that I was watching that you found my work when you were looking for information about Cartier.
Absolutely. So I was a couple years ago, and this is how it happened. So I was researching Cartier watches. I have a huge affection for vintage watches. That's like that vintage cars. There's a couple things that I love, and vintage watches are absolutely one of them. So I was looking into Cartier watches because I think they're one of the most elegant brands in the entire industry. I ended up coming up on Sunflowerman's watch page on Explore. I saw the Cartier watch and then I was like, wow, these watches like almost look alive. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I've actually seen other people like almost illustrate um, like timepieces before, but nowhere even close to the talent level you had. And then I went to the bio. And when I saw that, oh my God, he isn't only doing just watches, that's when I was like, I mean, you're good. So the talent was, undeniable, and I've been a fan ever since. And I am so, honored and excited to talk to you today.
I mean, that's a great intro. I first got into fashion through illustration.
Hmm.
Decided I wanted to be the menswear guy.
Okay.
So I jumped in on that, and then I grew up without ever owning a watch, knowing anybody who wore watches. But for some
Uh-huh.
reason, through Instagram, I found that there was this vibrant watch community. And what I ended up doing is I asked people to send in their favorite watch and
Okay.
a story of why it's their favorite. Like maybe it was handed down to them, maybe it was a wedding gift, or maybe it was just the thing they loved and they just wanted to buy eventually. So I had 100 watches and 100 stories, and I painted one a day for 100
Uh-huh.
days. So not knowing anything about watches, I eventually learned a lot about watches just through this project. I learned a ton, and I fell in love with the romanticism of watches.
Hmm.
There's something beautiful about the stories that go along with them. Everybody has, or everybody who was participating at least in this project I was doing had an emotional attachment. It wasn't
Of
simply
course.
I'm trying to get an investment piece. It was this means something to me, like hits me at my core.
Well, do you
Um,
mind if I hop in and say something about that? So,
yeah,
uh, first off, I completely agree. Quick, I want to give a shout out to my parents who just said hello, and also Jason Negron, who's one of my closest friends. He's the MC for Madison Square Garden. Just said how nice you were, which means that you obviously are very talented, and we're getting tons of messages. And I'm definitely going to shout out everyone soon. But back to the watches. So the watch I'm wearing right now is a Rolex Datejust. It's a reference 16014. It's a 36 millimeter. I prefer very small faces on watches. As you see, it's got a Jubilee bracelet, which I love. But again, I have an emotional or a connection to the watch. When I bought basically my first watch, and and it was for my engagement with my fiance, and I bought us matching his and hers Rolex Datejust, and with from our birth year, so it had like some more significance. So
that's
you're
fantastic.
absolutely correct. And what's funny is, which I can transition to in a second, I love watches. So my favorite brands, and I can't wait to hear yours. I'm pretty boring, so sorry guys. I'm very classic with my taste. My favorite three are Rolex, Cartier, and Patek. No particular order, just those are my favorite brands. I only have one really nice watch, which is what I just showed you. But I definitely have my eye, maybe for my wedding or something, for a Cartier watch. And I was wondering, maybe I can hear what your favorite brands are, and then maybe I can show people, because I actually have pictures in front of me, guys, of the watches that sort of I lust over and kind of just dream about having. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great to me. I like this plan a lot. Okay, so
Okay.
it's nice that you had like your three right up the top of your head like that. That's really good. I'm constantly vacillating between like this brand and that brand for various reasons. There are a few that I do love. Like Patek is amazing. I know
Hmm.
one guy that's all he collects, and I'm very
Oof.
jealous because
I was about to say that's a heck of a collection then.
right, like I don't live that life. I'm very jealous. But his again, like if you're a person who collects Patek Philippe, it could come
Yeah.
across as insincere. But when you hear him talk about why he collects them, it's a beautiful thing. So, um,
Honestly, I don't think that's insincere at all. I'm
oh
very
yeah,
jealous, and I wish I was collecting Pateks like that too.
right, yeah. That would be wonderful. Um, but I ran across this company at Basel World. And for those of you
Okay.
who aren't familiar with Basel World, it's kind of the premier men's or just watch trade show in
Yeah.
the world. Um,
Yes.
things happen with that on and off. Like there are other watch shows that are coming up in the world, but it's the one. It's been the one for a while. And I was
Hmm.
there a few years ago, and I ran across a company called Haldeman Horology.
Okay.
Um, and if I'm remembering correctly, Haldeman is Belgian, but I'm not going to say any more about that where he's based because I can't remember exactly. But
Hmm.
Beat Haldeman is an engineer with a poet's heart. I went in. He has this very small booth at Basel World. He has like one watch kind of on display, and then there's a secret doorway and a tiny booth where he will show you his watches and chat with you. And I felt very honored that I was like invited into this small booth space, and he had me hold up this watch to my ear. One of his first creations, a Haldeman H1, and he's like, "Do you hear it? Do you hear the music?"
I know where
And
this is going.
oh my God, I personally like I didn't hear anything that was. I don't have great hearing in general, but I was like, I can't lie to this guy because he obviously like feels this in his soul. But
Uh-huh.
his expression the whole time, he feels music and poetry in the mechanics and the engineering of his watches.
Wow.
Really like truly a genius with an artist's soul.
So is his watches
Fantastic.
more classic, or do they lean more towards like the Richard Mille, where it's like technical and that
I'm
kind of thing?
I'm gonna say it's a little in between because like a Richard Mille is technical, but it's also like it's a little more pop culture,
Yes. I
a
mean,
little less, yeah, a little less collector culture. So I think Haldeman kind of maybe is in between because they're very high end. Like I could never actually afford one of his watches. They're all made by hand by a small crew in his hometown like village. Uh, and yeah, I think just what he does is magical.
awesome.
Um, yeah, Haldimann, Haldeman.
I could see the Google search is going crazy right now. So, um, is it cool if I show people sort of some watches that I am obsessing over?
Please, yeah, I want to see these
All
watches.
right. So, guys, let's see if you can see this. This right here is the watch I would love to get married in. It's the Cartier Basculante Reference 2405. It's very unique. It's also a small face, which you know I love, which I mentioned before. It's a 36 millimeter by 24. Obviously, it's a rectangle, so that's why. I'm going to move on to the next one. This is just classic. I mean, if you really want a dress watch, in my opinion, it's very hard to top the Cartier Tank Americain in yellow gold. It's just so classic. You know, you buy a watch like this and it's really going to last your whole life. In fact, I believe when you buy a watch like this, it's not only really just for yourself, it's actually going to be for your legacy. And what I mean by that is if you give it to a child or someone in your family, it's something that easily will be passed on. So and then to go back to what you said, it's going to only continue and grow that story of the watch, which makes it more special. And even
Yeah.
if it has some patina on it, and if for anyone who doesn't know what patina is, it means like a little aging, a little worn in a little bit. Sometimes to me that actually even adds character. So that's going to be pretty cool. I'm going to move on to my next one. Now, as I said, I like small watch faces. You might not be able to notice this Patek as far as the size, but it's actually a 25 millimeter. Now, just to give you guys an example, this watch that I'm showing you right now, which is a pretty small face for a man, is 36 millimeters. So this is 25. It is very, very small. But to me, it really reads luxury. It reads like classic. Oh, it's amazing. Not the cheapest, but it is incredible. And then the last, now I don't necessarily know if I love the date. I just wanted to pull a picture that I thought was very clear of an all gold watch. When I look at gold watches, I also like white faces as well. But to me, just clean monochromatic, all gold, it's incredible. So this is a 36 millimeter, same size as the watch I'm wearing right now. And if anyone needs any questions about reference numbers or anything after, I am a nerd. I know them. And I don't care if you copy me and get the same watch. In fact, I actually would be honored. I feel like it's almost a fraternity when you have it. And, you know, what's funny is, and I'm sure everyone else knows this, but watches are great for business, you know, especially if you get people who really understand it. Why do people play golf, right? It's basically to entertain and to sort of, you know, grow relationships. And sometimes watches can be an unbelievable conversation starter. And I'm sure that's happened to you in the past too. Correct,
I
Matt?
mean, yeah, yeah, yeah. When, well, I live in Fort Worth, Texas right now. And here in Fort Worth, culturally, people, I think it's almost looked down upon to show off anything you have of value, which is,
Okay.
it's a funny world down here in Fort Worth. Whenever I see somebody wearing a beautiful watch,
Hmm.
it really tells me a lot about who they are. I can start a conversation.
100%.
So few people are wearing those watches, so it's a great way to actually bridge a conversation here in Fort Worth when you can see somebody wearing an interesting watch.
Hmm.
Um, I've only had that conversation here in Fort Worth a couple times, but when I'm out in the world at trade shows, when I'm traveling and I can see somebody wearing something really interesting,
Hmm.
ooh, it's a great way. It's a great way because I'll tell something about me is I'm pretty shy. Like when I am drawing, it's easy to chat, do whatever,
Hmm.
but in person, like it's hard for me to start a conversation with a random person. But if you're wearing a nice watch, ooh,
Well, the
oh man.
conversation might come to you sometimes too, you know?
Oh, of course. That happens to me. Well, I wear this late 80s
Oh, that's cool.
Quartz Seiko. I mean, it's like what, like $80 on eBay.
Hey, but
It's
listen,
basically
Seiko,
nothing.
especially Grand Seiko, I mean, Seiko makes good product. They really do.
Yeah. Oh, look, I like Seiko just in general, but this one, like I'm a fan of smaller watches
Hmm.
as well, so this one is great to just like throw on my wrist. One of my first watches that I ever got is this Hanart MK1. So it's a
Nice.
mono pusher chronograph, and I haven't worn this one in a little while. I cut my finger cooking the other day, so just have that band-aid on there. Um, so it's an automatic. I like
Okay.
to. This one has a beautiful crown though, so I like to manually wind it.
Uh-huh.
But the mono pusher is covered in a ceramic coating, as well as the indicator on the bezel, and the tips on the hands are also on the indicator hands are also tipped in ceramic, which I like that little detail.
100%. Little
Um,
details are the best, especially with
yeah,
watches.
this is the first like real watch I ever got myself. So this is a German company, Hanart. They started in 1892. They kind of died off, and then somebody revived it. And I just love a piece like this. This one's ooh, I'm trying to remember the size on this one. This might be right at 40 millimeters. I have to double check. So it's on the bigger side for me. But then this watch right here, designed and produced by a guy in New York, Brew
Okay.
Watches.
Hmm.
His most recent design, this is the retrograph. His most recent design is the mastergraph, and it is gorgeous. I need it. We bonded over coffee. That
Okay.
was that was how we connected, and then we realized also we both love watches. So
Hmm.
I have a whole collection of his watches now.
Love
Um,
that.
he's what you would call a micro brand in
Yep.
watches. I guess akin to like a microbrew. You know, it's not the big brand, but somebody
Hmm.
doing something with good craft and good design.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah.
So,
So those are
guys,
the pieces that I cherish.
awesome. And guys, if you don't know, because if you know Matt just from drawing illustrations, if you're just joining in, he he does more than just fashion illustration. I mean, from on people. I mean, watches. Sometimes he combines it even with vintage cars. Like, oh my goodness, it's incredible. I even believe you draw coffee too, which is fascinating. People love. You know, it's funny. People bond through hobbies. That's just how
Yeah.
friendships are grown. And I'm sure you've run into a lot of those situations in the past. And I know a lot of people are saying hi. I'm about to scroll up. Drew, what up? I see Javon just hopped on. Gabriella, how are you? Cody. Oh, Cody thinks those watches were super classy, elegant, and suave. I agree.
Yeah,
Somebody saying, oh, Felix, our photographer. Oh my goodness. Hey, what's up, Felix? Day chocolate. Okay. That's
I
not
like that.
so actually, so this is really interesting. I have a date. Excuse me, I have a date just. Excuse me. I have now started to love watches that don't have the date and day on it. Um,
Perfect timing.
yeah, right. Oh, here you bought your first watch. Now you don't like the ones with the dates
Yeah.
on it. No, I actually love the first watch, and again, it'll always have significance to me because I got engaged in it, and that was the best day of my life. I'm very, very fortunate. My fiance is unbelievable. Oh, I'm seeing so many people say hi. Oh my God, I'm so happy everyone's here. So while everyone's here, so I don't bore them, Matt, let me ask you a quick question as far as transitioning, because I really am excited to show people sort of how to construct garments, and then also I have some toys right next to me. What do you think we should do first right now?
When you say toys,
All right, so we'll do
tell me.
toys.
Okay.
We'll do toys. Got it. So, guys, a lot of people ask me my essentials. Just to like tell people, I feel it's easier to show. So, without any further ado, since we're talking about watches, this is my watch case. It's by Hodinkee, which is the grail as far as publications for watches. Similar how I feel about the Rake for menswear. And what I love about this, and sorry guys if I'm moving, I'm going to open it up quick. The leather is extremely plush and it has a ton of padding, which is amazing for travel. But as I open it up, you guys will be able to see in a second. Oops, my watch just fell out. It's got a watch holder and it's actually got like a band to keep it in place. And then sorry, it's hard to show you, but there's a flap. So, and it's basically symmetric. So you could fit two watches in it. It is the best traveling case. When you make an investment like a watch, and more than even the money, there's always significance, usually to it, even from like a emotional attachment standpoint. So it's very important to keep them protected. I also got insurance on mine just in case, but a great watch case is the way to go. Something that I also love, my good friends, anyone who is at my engagement party I don't have as many cigars now because of that party, but I like cigars once in a while. This is one of my cases. I love that it has a cutter just right there and handy. It's just like a Fox crock. I actually use this when I'm kind of just like on the move and I want to like just grab and go, and maybe like things are going to move around in my bag. It's not super duper expensive. So like, whatever, if it gets a little aged a little bit. And then I have an acrylic one. So when I want to do stuff a little bit fancier, and what's crazy about this is it almost acts as a portable humidor. So I love this. It also looks really cool. You can see the cigars in it. How people are saying it's fresh. Hey, Jason, what's up? Oh, Harshan, one of our models. What's going on, my man? So love the cigars. I'm very fortunate. Right now I got some 1815s, year aged, guys, if you don't know what I was talking about there. And then in the black case, I'm saving this, I think, for a wedding. Let me bust it out real quick. Hold on, guys. This is a 30-year anniversary. I don't know, maybe I'm too close, but that will be smoked after the wedding because I don't want my tuxedo reeking like cigars. So those are two of my toys, and I'm going to keep on going. Since I guess I haven't shut up about my engagement, which is pretty embarrassing, even though she's the best thing that's ever happened to my life. Uh,
It's
here's a nice
authentic.
little story. Here's a nice little story for this flask.
Ooh.
Okay. So when I asked my girlfriend, now fiance, to marry me in front of the Plaza Hotel. I had a horse and buggy in front, which isn't legal in New York City, and I had to go to great lengths to do it. I did not want to take a horse and buggy ride around Central Park, which they will do. I wanted it picked up right in front of the door at the plaza. which they used to allow. Now they don't. I know too much about these restrictions because I probably had to go through 5 people who canceled on me before it worked out. And I was nervous up until it happened. But basically, we took a horse and buggy ride around like Fifth Avenue, and it was unbelievable. We were in the streets, like in the mix with like, you know, cars and stuff. And we had this flask with us, and it was amazing. It's just a suede brown flask. Always will have importance to me because I'll never forget that experience. And, you know, if you are going to have a flask, you know, I don't want to judge anyone, but I don't think it's super classy to have it with like, you know, a liquor brand all over. You know, I just think clean is the way to go. I love this one. Yeah, so that's one of them. Another one is my sunglasses. Spent some money on these, so love them very much. Treat them great. They're just a very clean, like wafer shape. And again, I always advise people to buy timeless and it's forget the brand. You know, a brown tortoise type of wafer, you can't really ever go wrong. It's going to work for the rest of your life. And in fact, just be careful because if you have a significant other, they're probably going to try and steal it from you. Now, moving on, I have a passport holder. What's funny about this is that, yeah, it's really nice. I'll show you the inside and stuff. But what I like about the passport holder is actually I always know where my passport is because I like the holder. And, you know, when you like something, you kind of remember where you put it, right? So I'm always neat and organized, but I love it because it's got some really cool, I'll show you guys real quick. So when I get like business cards and stuff like that, it's got a flap. You can put it in and secure things in it, etc. But that's pretty self-explanatory. I like to write things down. I actually got this from Rag and Bone, and they did a collaboration with Timberland, who we've done a collaboration with. And, you know, when I was talking about patina, guys, that was on watches, what I was saying, like it kind of ages and, you know, it'll show some wear and how that's kind of cool. Well, this notebook, I don't know if you can see, it's kind of scratched up and beat up. And that's kind of, to me, the romanticism of it. And I love it for that reason. Next, I have some coasters because I like to have a drink once in a while. These are from Peru. My fiance bought this as a present to me. I work with Pendleton a lot, and this just reminds me to one of their patterns. In fact, so much so, watch this, guys. Here's one of their blankets, and look how similar it is. Isn't that really cool? So when she bought this home, I like didn't do a double take. I did about a triple take. I was like, wait a minute, how did you find something like that so similar? So I have a big attachment to that. Here's my wallet, just clean, easy. I don't like sort of watches, excuse me, watches. I don't like wallets that are bulky. Thin, clean, easy. You can sit on it, no problem. And then last but not least, because we all got to stay active, I use a Theragun. I have some back problems. I've had surgery before. So this kind of keeps me loose and sort of kind of in a way helps me do a little less stretching, but kind of stay kind of ready and be able to recover pretty quickly too. So hopefully that wasn't way too much, but those are some of the toys that I wanted to show off today.
I didn't actually know you had all those toys to show off. That's great. I'm
Hey,
gonna have to
listen,
have a new segment on the programming here for it.
yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, when you're going to go live with someone as talented as you, man, I'm bringing my A game. You kidding me?
Well, I respect that and appreciate it.
So I actually have so many questions for you. So do you mind if I ask a couple?
Me.
Awesome. So what I want to know, and I might be speaking out of turn, your illustrations, and I said this about your watches, there's a very distinct, like almost reality to the images. There's a, you can see what's happening. And from an illustration, that's almost impossible. That's incredible. So how did you really graduate, like when you were younger, maybe, to sort of make your illustrations just come alive? Like, is it like the shadowing you're using, or how are you able to sort of just make it? I mean, look what everyone's comments are. People are loving it. How did that happen?
Uh, yeah, I think there are different ways to make something come alive. I think in my perspective, like I found a way that it has a lot of realism, which
Hmm.
is in the sense that I play with light and shadow and shape. I've only recently started adding color into the mix. I'm not that great with color generally.
Hmm.
My wife is amazing with color.
Oh,
Anytime
wow.
I have trouble with color, I'm just like, so what's wrong with this? And she can point it out, and I don't understand it, but I'll make the change, and it always works. Um, so color is a great way to actually make something come to life as well, which is why I've been pushing myself in that direction. But it's shape and tone, right? Like where are shadows? Right, we got a nice sharp highlight here. I even toned down the background, so it was pure white before, right? So now you almost look like a sticker
Hmm.
on a book or something. But if we put the background on here, you might still look like you're a little bit of a cutout, but you have a lot more shape and form to your body now. We have shadow coming from behind. We have a highlight on your lapel and on your arm here. So your body jumps forward when the background's a little bit darker as well. It's really understanding how light exists in the world. And that's a constant game to try to figure out. But I've been drawing since I was born. Like I was born with a pencil in my hand. So I've been experimenting with all of these things just since forever. Um,
Well,
yeah.
you definitely are a true talent. So, we have a similar experience that I haven't shared. I consider a, probably the most important part of fashion training your eye, and I don't take that lightly. When I was an editor, which we discussed about earlier, um, I went to Florence, Milan, and Paris twice a year, obviously, for 4 to 5 years. And I saw through Instagram that you were at Pitti Uomo. And I, sorry guys, don't call me during this. Sorry, people are trying to FaceTime me, and it took off the call. I apologize. Um,
uh,
but at Pitti Uomo, the amount of stuff you can see within just walking literally 20 feet could be more than uh, you learn in a month, in a year, in just in normal life. So I wanted to hear what the impact of Pitti Uomo not only has had on your like illustration like skills, but what impact it's even made in your own style. Because in my opinion, as people's styles evolve, their tastes evolve, and even their talents evolve. And you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I just would love to hear your answer.
yeah, I think I started paying attention to Pitti. I think as most people in the U.S. probably did around my age, that we paid attention online on Tumblr, like that hashtag menswear, when people first started paying attention to all the street style photography that was happening at Pitti, everywhere else as well. But Pitti just became this huge, important space for understanding men's fashion and who was creating the culture. So I got my first exposure through probably Tumblr, RIP Tumblr, even though I still use it every day. Uh, and when I was able to go for the first time 4 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
um, that time I was working with Luciano Barbera,
Mm-hmm.
doing some live activation in their booth. So I actually didn't get to walk around very much, which was uh, actually greatly disappointing. You're saying you don't have to walk very far to get just an enormity of inspiration
It's
to
incredible.
yeah, it's overwhelming. So when I went back this well, in January, actually, oh my gosh, in January, I was debating on whether to go this January. I'm so glad that I did because so much has happened uh, since
Yes.
then.
Oh, we don't know when the next one will be, but
Yeah,
let's
well,
keep it positive.
yeah, well, Pitti actually just put out a presser last week, early this week.
I saw it.
They're moving the show to September,
Yep.
so June is not happening. It's going to be in September this next season. Um, I
And
mean, we'll
similar
see.
for Fashion Week. So London and Paris canceled men's. And then Milan moved it from June to September. We're waiting to hear what the CFDA is going to do for uh, us domestically, but it's going to be a little challenging, and hopefully we'll all rebound. But um, is it cool if maybe I show people how to make some clothes?
This is the part that's exciting me. You told me you're
Oh
a
no, now
production nerd,
now I
so
feel pressured. Okay, hold on,
yeah.
guys. So for everyone wondering, I have plenty of clothes here, garments that I'm going to be showing people. But before we do that, I prepared a Microsoft Word document that I'm willing to share with anyone. It's extremely basic, but I want to just quickly go over some steps so I can like thoroughly explain it. And hopefully, once I explain it, things will make sense. So if you don't, excuse me, if you don't understand anything, don't worry. I would love to take some questions after, I explain some things. So just give me a few minutes and then fire away with some questions. So without any further ado, here's my Microsoft Word document, aptly called How to Make Clothes. So the first step, and this is pretty obvious, guys, is CADs, and that's basically a digital rendering of a garment. So even though, things change, like you might not be able to find the specific fabric that matches the exact texture of your rendering or whatever, but at least it serves basically as a roadmap for your garment that you're creating. So, people can draw it by hand and then bring it into the computer. You can go straight into the computer, but it really acts as your roadmap. So when you hear the word CAD, it basically is a digital mock-up of whatever garment you're creating and will be your roadmap. The second is you make a pattern. Now, a pattern acts as a stencil for fabric cutters. And basically what happens is garments are made in pieces. So it's like, it's funny. When you're doing true cut and sew, it's not like a 1, 2, 3 process whatsoever. Um, Everything is cut into pieces and then eventually sewn in together. So when you make this pattern, it's your stencil. And the fabric cutters take those pieces, they lay it out all on a long table, and they make sure nothing is missing. And they also make sure you like you're sure that this is kind of what you want to go with, because once you cut the fabric, there's no going back, and you can't just simply adjust it. That's just not how it works. You actually waste your fabric. You could lose a lot of money. So yeah. So anyways, you'd need a pattern, and you need a pattern for every single garment. If you're making even a slight alteration to something, the pattern must be adjusted, or it will come out wrong, or it will come out to just not your liking. Um, Now, if you're just creating a sample, we can skip this upcoming step. However, if you're doing production, which means you're like selling the clothes because you're making a production run, there's a couple things that are needed. One is size grading, and the others are markers. Now, size grading is basically your rules to tell your manufacturer what are the differences between a small and a medium. And that, I don't want to go into too much here because I could spend the whole hour on that. But, it could be stuff like length. It could be the torque on, like, let me show you guys. So this is a James Purse gray t-shirt, right? And if you guys see, it's a little loose right here on my neck, right? So if, let's say I wanted it to be a little bit cleaner, I could adjust like the torque or the measurements for that, and that could be in my size grading rules. Um, Second is a marker. Now, it's not a marker like a Sharpie. It's basically it's how they're going to cut the fabric. And I'm going to go into a little bit more into that in a little bit. Now, we're going to go back to our first step, okay? And if you guys remember, we were talking about CADs and digital renderings, all right? And I did mention that it was a roadmap. Now, what I do, and pretty much most designers do, is you have a style sheet. And within that style sheet, you have all different kinds of information in it because you want to limit the mistakes of your manufacturer. If you do not limit the mistakes of your manufacturer, it can cost you a ton of money, a ton of time, and a big, big, big headache. So what I do is I staple my fabric like a little swatch. I cut off like a little corner of my fabric, of my trims, and I attach it to this style sheet. And in this style sheet has a picture of that can on it. And so let me give you guys an example of what a trim is, because some people just might not know. So we're going to talk about ribbing, which is very big, especially in the athleisure world and in outerwear too. So if you guys have a jacket with a cuff on it, um, that's considered your ribbing, like on where your wrist is, or even around your whole waist, could even be on your neckline. So just to limit mistakes, I staple the fabric, I staple all my trims to the actual style sheet. So when they're manufacturing it, they can literally feel it. They can literally look at it. And if things are similar, because let's say you're making a big collection, and let's say you have two different kinds of navy wool, and they do look similar, they can actually look at the grains of the fabric. They'll really know which to use, which is very important, because let's say they do use the wrong fabric and it comes out even good. Well, then what are you going to do about that other piece? Because what if that doesn't, like, the construction doesn't work with the weight of that fabric or whatever? So that's something to really pay attention to. The next is okay, so basically what I do is I take my fabrics and my trims, and once they are cut, excuse me, let me take a step back. Fabric and trims are cut, okay? Then they also includes like fusible and lining. Now, lining, I'm sure most people know, if in a blazer, if you're doing outerwear, a lot of times you need something in between the lining, and most people don't know that, and in between the garment itself, okay? And basically, it's almost like you press the line, you press it together, you fuse it. So you're fusing both sides, and it's very thin. And especially if you're using any decent fusible, no one's gonna have a clue, and just gonna make the construction better, last longer. You'll have more timeless pieces because you'll, have it for a longer time span. All right. Once everything is ready, sewing and construction begins. So those are the steps that basically happen before anything even starts. All right. Now, fast forward, construction happens, and we're going to bring up some pieces in a minute, and I'm going to explain to you what patterns are, what pieces look like and stuff. But after everything is sewed and constructed, there's then called finishing. Finishing includes a heat or a steam press to make sure that the garment is, lays properly. They'll trim, manufacturers will trim like loose fabric or like threads, and basically just have it fully ready to sort of be presented to the customer. And that includes like polybagging or whatever, however, your sort of packaging goes. Okay. I'm sorry if I'm like doing like too much of the teacher thing right now, but this is one of our tracksuits, okay? And I'm sure some people have seen this in the past. We're selling it right now on our eShop. Jim Jones, who's the hip hop legend from Dipset, wore this in our runway show. So I'm going to talk about the pattern, okay? And when basically manufacturers are cutting those pieces, okay? And they're getting those pieces from your pattern, all right? So if you look at this, most people would be like, all right, well, I'm sure this is one full piece. This is a piece. Well, no, okay? What actually happens, guys, is this is one piece, and then this is another piece. Why? It's separated by a zipper. And you got to remember, if each side isn't perfectly symmetric, if it's even slightly off, it's just not going it's going to look like it's slightly off, and you're not going to buy it. So that's the deal. All right. Now, each little piece has its own pattern. So let me, a piece of the pattern, excuse me. So if you see, there's almost like a teardrop that goes into the stripes. It's not like, sorry, I'm trying to zoom in right here. That is where the armhole is attached to the body, right? So it's impossible to have it as one piece because it won't lay properly. So each piece of the garment is cut. And now, just because I showed you a very colorful example, the same applies when it's not. I did that because it's obvious. So see this black part across the top of the body? Those are pieces as well, individual pieces. And all these pieces eventually get sewn together. It's I'm a huge production nerd. It's really fascinating. In fact, a lot of the rules that apply for fashion applies for general manufacturing, whatever you're producing. So really cool stuff. Another thing that's pretty interesting, I know a lot of people have asked me about my weather map fabric, where I found it, etc. Now, this is kind of cool. We actually created this fabric. So it's called a sublimation print. And essentially, we took a piece of polyspan and we printed it on it. And then what we did was we used it as the insert into the jacket. So super cool. It was similar weight to this black fabric, which makes it sort of not be like feel weird on the body, which is very, very important. Guys, when you are constructing garments, it's very, very important to make sure that the fabric weights, they don't need to be perfectly the exact, but it's got to be close because it will feel off on your body. You'll feel heavy in different areas. And, you know, for me, if, you know, I always say, hey, if you don't got fit, you don't got shit. But if you're not comfortable, you know, confidence is what I want to give guys when they wear our clothes. And, you know, that's a good way to keep them confident, especially when you're making mixed media products. And mixed media is when you're using several different types of fabrics within one garment. So that's one little item I wanted to show you today. I'm going to pull out some more real quick. The next one I'm going to show everybody is a Pendleton jacket that I created. And before I go into the design details, because there's a lot of this, I mean, there's, if you can see guys on here, there's even a keychain hook. There's a clasp right here. There's even a pocket on top of the jacket. But something that's really important, guys, is you always miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And I'm a huge Pendleton fan. I love skiing. It's one of my favorite things to do. And throughout my travels, I started seeing a lot of Pendleton. And I know I showed the one of the blankets before, but I saw Pendleton blankets, Pendleton, even garments like jackets. I saw Pendleton blankets, pillows, etc. Just became a huge fan of the brand. To be transparent, I asked to work with them. They said no 4 times in a row. I kept it like, and most people, when somebody says no 4 times in a row, you'll get discouraged. Nah. First of all, what's the worst thing they're going to do? Say no again? So, and I'm sure, Matt, because you know you're in the industry, so you can relate to this. I got a press preview from their publicist. And guys, this wasn't, I'm not special. They sent this to everyone, okay? That was probably in a mass email list. And basically what happened was, I was like, you know what? They mentioned that their team that is normally out of state is coming in for this. And like, you know, all their high level design and salespeople and pretty much their whole team. I was like, man, that's an unbelievable opportunity. Like, I should just go and like, what's the worst thing? They'll say no again. Maybe I'll have a new relationship. Maybe I'll get, you know, inspiration, whatever. Well, I literally put my heart on the table, sang for my supper. This is no joke. Like, I basically told them how much I love Pendleton. I told them I will, like, the difference between working with me and a different brand is I will put my head through a wall for this. Okay. And I will literally, this will be that important to me. And at the time, they only were working with Nike, Kith, and Tommy Bahama for the entire year. After leaving that meeting, we now work with them. This is our 2nd season. This is a jacket that's actually in production. Dave East wore. You can buy it now on our eShop. But what I love about it is we've also now created new garments with them that just appeared on the runway as well. So it's kind of a partnership that's evolved. But the message really is that, you know, if you believe in something and you're passionate, just keep going. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? It's going to be this, you'll be in the same damn place that you were to start with. So for me, I just, you know, it's such a blessing to work with them. If you don't know, which I should have mentioned, Pendleton is actually a fabric mill. They supply so much wool for domestically, I mean, internationally too, but I don't want to throw stats out there, but and so please nobody hold me to this. But like we're talking about 30-40% of the wool domestically in like, it's amazing as far as new wool being produced. They're amazing. So their quality is amazing and retailers know that. And that's why it's such a blessing to work with them because you know the quality is going to be incredible. You know it's going to last forever. You might have to pay a little bit more, but again, like I mean, easier said than done, but if a garment was 300 or 325, I'd rather pay the 325 if it's going to last me, nearly a lifetime. So that was sort of the thought process, behind working with them, and kind of wanted to tell the story and the whole thing. But the message is keep pushing. So now back to the nerdy part. So, guys, I know I was talking about ribbing before. I don't know if you can see the neckline. I'm going to go to the bottom of the garment. You might be able to see it better. It's basically, what you see on a sweatpant ankle or a sweatpant waist. That's what ribbing is. This jacket has double zippers. And guys, when you, this is really important because a lot of times, of course, you need to close outerwear, or, even on some fashion pieces, you'll have a quarter neck zip. So when you're buying a zipper, okay, or placing an order for a production run of zippers, you must tell them the exact length. You must tell them what size. Now, let me explain to you what size means. Size means the size of the pulley lever, okay? Also will mean the size of the grains, okay? So you need to include both of those details in there, or else you're just going to get whatever the hell they want to give you. And you also need to tell them if you want a plastic, if you want a metal. Now, there are definitely pricing differences within that, but you must include that. Now, what a lot of people consider closed or open. We'll go into that in a second. But for instance, I made sure with this garment that it had a double zipper, which means there's one on the top and one on the bottom, and they work at the same time, because I felt like if a guy needs a little bit more air, or if he's just layering so much underneath, it's a great option just to have. And it's funny is that out of all the garments I've ever made, oh my Lord, this is the one. I don't know. I mean, I shouldn't be saying about my own stuff, but it hugs your shoulders so much, and it makes you look skinnier. And who doesn't like that? So that's why I love it. It makes me look good. I could throw it on with a t-shirt, with a sweater, even a hoodie underneath. I actually sometimes even zip it up and then put another thing over it, and actually just kind of have like the black and the plaid showing. So it's kind of like almost like wearing a t-shirt under a blazer. So many different ways you can wear it. I'm so proud of that, the co-branding right there, because it took me 5 tries. But anyways, guys, I wanted to talk to you guys about pockets, okay? Because pockets is another thing that is on garments all the time, right? So remember when we were talking about patterns, all right? Now, it's hard to see, okay? But as you can see, there's a flap to this pocket, and then there's the pocket. Now, those are 2 separate pattern pieces, okay? So you have the shape of, let's say, a U shape, which is your actual pocket itself, and the shape and the size is important, because if you think about it, if it's not big enough, you're not going to be able to put enough stuff in it. Or like, there's nothing worse than a jacket when you put your hand in it and it's like kind of cramping your hand, and you're like, I just want to freaking put my hand in there. You know what I'm saying? So that's very important. Now, the size of the flap is also important, because that's going to affect the aesthetics. Okay. So just wanted to explain to you guys logic about pattern pieces and what different pattern pieces are. Again, this is my first time doing this. So, and I've never even been Instagram live. So hopefully I'll get better, and I can't wait to answer some questions in a few, but wanted to show you this. And remember when I was talking about hardware, guys?
Well,
And that could
Jace,
be,
one second, man.
sure.
So Instagram used to have a timer, a countdown timer,
Okay.
um, which they don't have anymore.
Okay.
So I don't remember exactly when we jumped back on. I guess this is the hard part with having the struggle we had in the beginning. I think we
Okay.
jumped on at maybe around 11:34, which gives us about 7 more
Oh,
minutes,
so I better
maybe.
hurry up.
So we have like 5 to 7 minutes, yeah. So that's our timing left before Instagram cuts us off.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll be extra, extra, extra quick. So if you guys wanted to hear like what hardware is and stuff like that, zippers, snaps, even something like this, like a clasp, is considered hardware. This hook for keychains are considered hardware. So just wanted to give you guys a little brief education. If anyone wants to learn more, find out more, maybe I'll do more of this. But I definitely want to hear more of what Matt has to say, and even what everyone else what their questions are because I was definitely talking too much.
Yeah, go hit up those questions and see what they're saying. So I know when I'm doing these lives and I'm drawing, it's hard
Mhm.
for me to monitor the comments and do this part. So I'd love to hear
Sure.
what
All
some of
right,
those questions
guys.
were.
Well, please, if you're my friend, start firing away. And if you're not, please fire away also. Um, hey, Nick Carvel. Oh my God. Thank you so much for posting today. Guys,
Yeah.
definitely check out this gentleman. His knowledge is off the charts. He contributes to GQ, Britain, Mr. Porter, and pretty much whoever he wants because he's that knowledgeable. Somebody just said, Nerdy Jen just said, pockets are important. I agree. Um, Somebody just said, iPhone at least in the pocket. I definitely agree. If you can't fit your phone in your pocket,
Hmm.
oh yeah, you're in for something. That's not the best purchase. Um, Pendleton is a crazy wool thread and count. I completely agree. Um, some people are saying this is awesome. Thank you so much. Persistence is key. I agree. Wool shrinks. Don't heat or cool or clean it. Okay, you're apt. So facts. We obviously have, care instructions inside. So, we obviously tell people what they need to do as far as cleaning it. Some people are saying the jacket is fire. Thank you. Let me scroll down and see what some of the recent ones are. Okay. Someone wants the jacket. What inspires your new pieces? Wow, that's a great question. You know, um, hmm. Well, first off, you need to know what season you're designing for. Okay. You also have to have a healthy mix of what I consider reality versus sort of cool factor. And what I mean by that is, um, and I've said this before, I categorize fashion into two categories: believable and playful. And
Hmm.
although playful is the innovative driving force sometimes behind our industry, and it could almost appear like costumey, and I have no problem with that. Believable clothes is what sells, and for the most part, and we make believable clothes. So what I do is I experiment with color. And as you saw in that one piece, but what I do it is I use it as an accent because when people approach our rack, I don't want of clothes, I don't want them to be like, whoa, that is like way too So um, experimenting with color is something I'm inspired by. As you saw, I did it in a weather map print in that V shape, which I call a chevron. And that was the insert we used. For our recent Pendleton collab, even though that one that we showed you with the rainbow weather map wasn't a collab with Pendleton, our second season with Pendleton, we did make a tracksuit with them. And in that insert, we used their Southwest inspired, most people know it as Aztec or something like that, wool fabric. And again, something I should have mentioned during that, when you have a V shape, right, and it's separated by a zipper, when you cut the fabric, it's not simple enough to just cut it. You actually need to make sure that it mirrors perfectly on both sides. Because, for instance, let's say you're cutting a print, right? And if one side has is slightly off, it's going to be aesthetically a disaster. As far as inspiration goes, I always have a theme for my season. I've now really have enjoyed developing my own fabric. So sort of whatever I'm feeling is kind of what I roll with. I was very inspired this season by static, and that is basically what you used to when people used to watch pay-per-view illegally. So we created our own static fabric. Yeah, and could speak a while about that. So let's get on to a new question. I like your design. Collab with Levi's. I would love to collab with Levi's. They're a heritage brand. Make sure you hit them up for me. Make literally okay. Let's keep going. See what other people are
Well, let
scrolling
me
up
jump in
now.
here real quick, Jake.
Sure. Wow.
So we get some good questions.
Yes. No.
Oh,
Wow.
the
Wow to
painting
you.
here, yeah. It came along pretty well. I think that's where it's going to sit for now. I'll probably add a few details,
Okay.
um, and then send this off to you. But I just want to make sure before we get cut off by Instagram, I want to make sure I say thank you so much for joining me, for being so ecstatic, having so much prepared. I love the toy section, and then the whole like production process. That was killer. I mean, that was fantastic.
Thank
You
you.
brought your A game and you brought some knowledge, which I think people often have a lot of knowledge, but you were very prepared, and that makes me excited for another one of these in the future. Um,
Thank you. The,
yeah,
the honor was all mine. I'm not even just saying that. I mean, one day I can't wait to work with you. Maybe even on a garment. We'll talk about that offline. We can definitely make that happen.
let's
But
uh,
right.
let's
So
have that
so listen,
conversation. I would love that.
when it happens, the Instagram live followers better go nuts because you saw how this happened
Right?
literally from this conversation. But yeah, the pleasure
Yeah.
was all mine. Pleasure was absolutely all mine. So should
All
we
right.
end it or what do we do?
Yeah, let's end it here before
Okay.
Instagram cuts us off. This will be a better ending. Let's just
Okay.
thank everybody else for joining us. That was so awesome for for fighting through all the struggles we had
Yes.
initially. Yeah, and I'll be sharing this on stories and on my feed, and I'll send it to you. You can feel free to do with it as you like. There'll be a time lapse as well, which I think will be cool.
Yes. And
Um,
everyone, please stay safe out there. That's what's most important.
mm, absolutely,
All right.
absolutely.
Thanks so
All
much,
right,
guys.